Great.
We're back to high quality, high D, HD.
Nice. Nice.
So the funny story was your friends with the note changing it, you changing his life,
Yeah.
right? Changing his life. Wow.
Yeah, I know. And it doesn't seem like what, the things that you've said to me and the things that I said to him, you read enough books and they talk about this a lot.
Right.
There is, I think, an issue with before we started doing this work, there's so much information. There's the, there, and much of it is just different ways of trying, and there's different teachers, different metaphors and different analogies, but they could be talking about many different levels of this stuff, and it's just like, because in a way, it's infinite, and you can talk about all the different aspects of the work, but when you just get down to the bare bones of it, and then you're able to, I think what's helped me is have a teacher that can help guide you to keep you on track with those core things, those core simple things, and working those things, and having a very specific direction, taking a specific direction at a time.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you actually see like some of this information, being able to apply it, and then actually you're interacting with it, you're playing with it, and then it becomes so much more of like a part of your experience, instead of just like a book I read, it has this, but it's not, you're not like constantly applying it and
Reminded.
and reminded of, and seeing it in almost like in real time or shortly thereafter, and being able to like interact with it.
Right. Yeah, there's a real difference in
And the tone you can use, and I know you've worked a lot on how you say things, like how important that is in terms of it actually, the information really being taken in
right.
on a deep way, in a deep way.
Yep.
Because like the things I was telling them are not that, well, like you said, like at some point everything becomes self-evident, it's like they don't seem like, it's not like rocket science, yet it has the ability to change your life.
Right. But when it's, how do you do that? Guess technical jargon. When it's a key operating feature of our operating system, and all of a sudden you understand that it's there. There's a function that's there, that's your key operating thing that's going to run the whole system, and you understand that it's there and it's running. It's like, oh, that's what's happening and why. I didn't know. I thought I was just glitching out.
Yeah.
Or I thought I was just upset or glitching out, if you want to turn it, and it's, but if you understand it's there and what it's doing, it's like, and that since you're the system, you can work on changing that program, that little function in there. It's like it changes everything, otherwise you're just along for the ride and not understanding, thinking this is the way things have to be. It's not realizing it's like, no, that's just the way that app was programmed wrong,
Yeah.
So,
And you said a key thing of like, when you can go in and change, you can go in there and change. You're talking about the you that is that small little thing that we're building.
The observer, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. The observer, the witness, your piece of self-awareness. Yeah.
I feel like that's like the first step. Well, it's the first step and it's the last step in a way. And do you know what I mean by that? Like, I feel like that's for the evolution of consciousness for humanity. That's probably our next big, being able to see that, and more and more people being able to just not realizing that they aren't the system. They took themselves to be that system, and that there was nothing outside of that system. Because that's huge for more and more people that can have that space. It transforms things.
It transforms each individual. It transforms their interactions between individuals. It does everything. I mean, that's the key to humanity's change of direction.
Right there.
Right there. If we get the word out and it becomes recognized as, oh, and everybody recognizes the truth that you're the one who's causing all your own discomfort, and you're the one who's having all the reactions that's causing your emotional reactions, and that what's really happening is inside of your mind, and it's not really what happened with the person you're interacting with. And they recognize and it's like they recognize they hear that, but then they recognize that as true, of just fundamentally that's true. Then everything changes about their interacting with other people and their automatic reactions and emotions of like what they've done, of that person did this and they're blaming them, and if they would just stop, and if they weren't how they were, and if they weren't wrong, and they're judging them, and they're making me feel this way, that whole story starts to fall apart bit by bit by just the recognition of the truth and them watching themselves. And then you have a completely different way that people start acting with each other, even though they're not able to control their reactions in the moment, because, for lack of a better word right now, their whole belief system and their emotional reaction system is like triggered, and they're in it, and the story is taken over, and their mind is racing, and they're telling the story, and they're blaming, and they're saying that person did this to me and making me feel this way, and that wasn't right what they did, and they're completely justified in their mind because they thought that person did that intentionally to hurt them, and that other person should have known better, or should be a better person, or shouldn't be so selfish, or shouldn't be so thoughtless or whatever. And they're recognizing, well, wait a minute, if I remember the truth that I'm the only person who can cause an emotion in my body, and I'm the one who's causing, not only as I'm the only person who can cause an emotion to arise in my body, whether it's fear or anger or hurt, I'm the one who's causing the emotions to arise in my body with the way I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the one who's causing all my discomfort and anguish. And you recognize that as true, and then you follow just the natural progression of, even when you come out of your reaction and the blame, and you think back on it after you've calmed down and you're more in a neutral, aware position, and you go, oh wow, I took that personally, and went into a full-blown reaction to that person. I don't know what exactly happened within me, but the truth is it all happened within me. None of it happened with them. Then you've just started to reprogram and change the whole dynamic of every way human acts themselves and interacts with other people. And that's what you were saying, what I just talked about. That's the point where humanity can change their direction, from judgment and victimhood and reaction and retribution and all of that to just like total self acknowledgement, self-awareness, self-healing, self-growth.
Not caught in the I'm right and they're wrong.
I'm right and they're wrong, right? And it's like, and I believe it because that's the way I feel. That's the way, my emotions are telling me that's the way it is. My belief system is telling me that's the way it is.
That I'm right and they're wrong.
That I'm right and they're wrong. And I'm justified in the way I feel about it and my judgment about them. No matter what it's cloaked in, the story that's cloaked in. The strongest beliefs and judgments that you have against other people, that you are having your own reactions still that are hurting yourself, are the ones that the story seems the most justified about why you're right and they're wrong.
Yes.
Okay, it's the most justified thing you can do. And a lot of times it's hiding in, you think that that's morally the right thing to do. So of course they're wrong.
Yes.
Okay. And of course I should be, judging them and feeling outraged at them.
100%.
And what it really means is you're hiding it, that you're responsible for your outrage, whichever emotion it manifests in the belief that your judgment's so wrong is doing it, and and you're making the huge assumption that they're completely aware of why and what they're doing.
Yes.
And not understanding, they're in their own reaction to life, the way they've learned it. And that's how they have learned to interact with it based on what's going on in their reactions. And they're not aware of it at all. And now you're blaming them for not being aware of it. So it kind of shifts. And once you see the truth of it for yourself, and the deeper you get into the truth of, wow, that one was hidden in there. It's just a reaction I had on something I thought was totally correct about why this person, was wrong in the way they were treating me, because all I was trying to do was be kind. And look what they did to me. It's like, they're wrong. How could they do that to me when I was just being so kind and generous? Because that one seems like I was kind, generous, and loving, and they were a shit to me.
Yeah.
Like they're a horrible person. It's like, well, wait a minute. It's like, what was driving you being kind, loving, and generous that you feel like they have to respond to anything you did in the way you want them to do? Kind, loving, and generous means giving, not expecting.
You froze up.
Oh, did I?
No, you're back.
So once you go far enough into like, what was that all about? I mean, because that's a tough one. I'm kind, loving, and generous, and they're being really, hurtful. Well, it's only hurt because you're emotionally interpreting what they did as personal to you, and the reason you're doing it, it's personal to me, is because you felt it emotionally, and there's nothing more personal what you feel emotionally, and that you did that, but you did it to yourself. You made yourself feel those emotions. Yeah, you didn't control it. It was all triggered in your mind quicker than you could even think about it coming up, but you're the one who did it.
Yeah.
Okay, so now all of a sudden it's like that. So once you go and you start seeing that deeper and deeper within yourself, and recognize and pull up and see what happened within yourself for each one of those different things that happen in your life, you get a point of view of when the other person is doing something, of like totally understanding that they don't see it for themselves. They don't see what they're doing. They don't see how they're hurting themselves. You can see why they're doing what they're doing and those things, and you realize it has nothing to do with you. And you go from being judgmental to them to understanding, they have no other way to be.
Compassion.
And it makes perfect sense for them side. And from there, you have compassion instead of judgment. Once you understand them, you have compassion for where they're stuck at and hurting and limiting themselves.
Yeah.
Now
First, you have to see it in yourself.
you have to see, when you see it in yourself, you cannot deny that it's true and it's happening that way, and you can understand that it's happening for them as well, because we're all doing the same thing. And then from that understanding, it's a simple step to compassion.
Very simple, very direct.
Yeah, because people have a tough time being compassionate with someone who's doing crazy, hurtful behavior over and over again, and just being compassionate about it, because it's like, well, they're wrong, and what they're doing is, evil or hurtful, or I can't agree with that at all. And it's like, I can't be compassionate with them, or they've hurt me so bad I can't forgive them and be compassionate. And that's all tied up with, again, all your reactions and how strongly you feel about it. But once you see the truth, like you said, once the truth becomes self-evident from your point of view, like, oh, of course, had nothing to do with me. And then what are you going to hang on to your resentment and your blame for? It's like, God, shoot, it's like blaming the little ant that crawls up your leg and takes a little nip. It's like, he doesn't know.
Yeah. 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 Because in talking with people about that, and I still notice it come up with me. So it's of course it's there, it's like they can see it in certain circumstances, and that maybe they're not taking as personally, but really it's like those instances that they think up where they can see it, the hardness in that I'm right and they're so wrong is maybe not as powerful, but they'll show an example of, but like this one, they really were wrong and they really hurt me. Like, no, like it's not about me, it's about them. They did that to me and it was fucked up,
Right.
and it's like, and you can just, and we all do that. And I still, I try to catch myself when that comes up, and I'm sure I know that there's still those that exist within me, that like I emotionally react to from that assumption.
Yep.
But that's just, it's almost like, yeah, like you're digging deeper. You start with smaller stuff that you can manage a little more, where that you haven't taken it so personally. You're not so right and they're not so wrong. And then you just kind of build that muscle and you work your way up to bigger and bigger stuff where, you see what's going on in the world, like where people get caught up in these things that are on big levels of, nuclear weapons and dictators and genocide. It's like, you try telling somebody to like have compassion for, and it's not even like the more specific you get of like having compassion for a specific dictator, like people are going to be like, what? Stop with that mumbo bump jumbo, like new age, like have compassion for everyone, love everybody, screw that. And I can see why people say that. If you don't see, like, if you haven't done some work to see like what's going on,
how it's working, and ultimately what you're doing to yourself.
Yes.
With your opinion about that dictator, that war, that politician, that party, that belief system that some other group has, what you're doing to yourself.
Yes.
Right. What are you doing to pollute your own little pool of water of your mind? Right. Gets back to that. It's like, it's just perfectly what you said, because what they're doing may have been completely not a great thing for them to do. Maybe a really hurtful thing and physically damaging to people and outrageous. all of those things may be true, but what's your reaction to that, right? What's your emotional reaction to that about who they are and what they're doing and what you're doing to yourself? Okay, you can still make all kinds of decisions about what they're doing, but what's your emotional reaction to yourself about it and your understanding of why they're doing it? That makes a huge difference. You know,
Yeah.
somebody's coming up and they're looking for a fight, and you see that coming. It's this, and you step out of the way and you remove yourself from the thing. That's not being, emotionally or spiritually uh, uh, afraid. That's just being wise. It's like, oh, it's the
Yeah.
reality. They're a little bit, they're out of control. They're doing violent and angry behavior. It's like, I don't know what's driving it, but it's like, it has nothing to do with me. I'm going to remove myself from whatever the situation is and do that. You go into all the other stuff about it, of thinking it's at you and all your fear and how could they do them, this and that. Now you've entered a whole different world in your mind and what you're feeling and what you're doing to yourself.
Yeah.
So if you understand that that's what's going on, and that's why I like that metaphor that I use of the bowl of water being your mind, and it's clear water, but whatever emotions you create and put into that water muddies it up for you. That's what you got to stop. That's what you want to stop yourself from doing.
Yeah.
That's
what changes the world, and it changes your world.
Changes your world, changes your interactions with the outside world, and that changes the world.
Yes.
Right.
Like Miguel says,
yeah.
Help me change the world. And what I mean by world is just like change your world.
Change your world.
And we get caught up and think, well, if I need to do something out there. I need to fix that out there. Because if I don't, who will? Who's going to, But it's such an easy trap to get caught in. Like the assumption that if that changing your world, changing your water, changing your emotional reactions is the most powerful thing that will change the outside, because the outside is actually happening in that bowl of water. It's inside every person.
Right.
All that stuff that you're seeing of the dictators and genocide, where do you think that was created from? The same thing that is creating that that you're going on your phone and seeking it out, getting that hit of, like, because I look at when I look on, everything's fine, everything's beautiful day, and you can go on the phone and read about, you can find chaos. It's like, did that chaos come to me, or did I go to that chaos? I went to that chaos. I was the drug seeker there. I was the addict. So, and
yeah, I mean, it's just understanding how the whole system works within yourself, how the whole system works between other individuals together, and going, oh yeah, of course there's conflict, because it's like, oh, it's set up to be conflictual all the time.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you were setting up a business communication system to try and facilitate, communicate through business, and you saw what system you had, and it was this system, you'd go, oh my God, no wonder we can't function, we're losing money and customers and stuff like this. This doesn't work at all. You'd have to revamp the whole system, which is what we're talking about doing. And my way of explaining it is like, understand what's going on within you, understand that's going on within everybody, and then it's like, what would you logically do to make yourself feel better, based on that, this is what's happening. It's like, now and then we get right back to that thing. Oh, you would change it and you would self-modify.
Yeah.
So a lot of the work is that self-awareness work of the watcher, and then explaining what's going on, and the watcher knows what to watch now and do, and then it starts to resist what's been happening because it doesn't want that. And then that starts the process of transformation, and then picking up a lot of tools along the way to help with that transformation as they've been seeing what's going on within them. How do I help facilitate the change in my automatic reactions that I'm having that are kind of been embedded in my programming, so that I don't have these emotional reactions, so I don't have these stories and judgments and the whole thing that keep perpetuating, and then get to where I want to go, where I enjoy, and it's like, so it just flows. Awareness of something, transformation, because you're self-modifying, tools for transformation to help you self-modify faster and easier, change that, and back and forth and back and forth. And it's just this constant back and forth. And it's like you gotta keep rolling, changing, shifting. And the closer you get to bigger ones, the stronger the stronger your belief will be that, no, this one seems just so justified. It's like,
Yep.
that's a little warning bell in your mind that goes, oh, I'm really hanging on this one strong. It's really justified. There's really something strongly buried in there that's running the whole thing, that it's not serving me.
Yeah.
So I've seen this in play with myself over the last couple of years. And I've really started to like recently get at some key things that were in there that I would been searching for a while. So that's been really good, because you started this thing as how you doing. I said, oh, I'm doing really good, because I've been digging out some stuff that's been like really part of my virtual reality belief system in there recently, a couple of big nuggets. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, okay, that's what I've been looking for in myself, that's been operating. And it's caused me to, be a certain way in the world.
Okay.
And
There was still that, like, it was almost like the beliefs.
yeah,
Because I know when I asked you how you were doing, you're doing really well. I immediately thought, because I know you were saying you were working through some things, and it's like, that's just incredible. I just love it. But what I was saying was about, the beliefs, and you're starting to see what was driving it, of what you were.
what was
The
driving?
system was still trying to get for itself, or like a
Yes,
food.
yes.
Yeah,
And
but that
it was
wasn't.
being 100% successful still.
Okay.
It was
Yes.
completely hidden from me. And I could tell by my reactions, I could tell by what I was doing and not doing, that something's here, because I didn't like where I wasn't able to get to do things for myself. That I kind of generally looked inside, yeah, I kind of want to do that, but for some reason I'm not taking the action. Procrastination and lack of motivation was showing up. But I go, why? I go, this is no big, this is something I should be able to do, but I couldn't.
Uh-huh.
And so, so it's like, but I don't know what's running it. Well, now I know at least two big chunks, that are maybe three, that are running it. Now, when I talk about chunks, what's the thing?
Yes.
And we talk about a belief, right? What's the
Yep.
thing that holds a belief together and that really has the power?
The emotion.
The emotion. So I found two really strong emotions that I had, and fear of having to experience those emotions being triggered, that were like keeping them in place within me and causing me to modify my behavior, so I didn't have any chance of creating that for myself, even though by doing that, I was doing the actions that were actually creating me to feel that way. That loop that we do.
Yeah.
Where, what you're afraid of emotionally is what you cause to create for yourself to be reflected back to you.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I've found a couple of big ones in the last 2 months,
Oh, that's
of the base
amazing.
of one area, and it's like, okay, this is really good for the first time. And I know they've been there. Something's been there for a long time in this one area of my life, and it really has to do with being going out and being out in public and teaching and talking, but also going out and being, I have this aversion to like trying to do anything for financial financially, to really improve my financial situation. It's like, what the heck is this?
Mhm.
And so it's like it finally started to unearth. I found one thing, and then a few weeks later, another thing that was attached to it, and then another thing. Oh yeah, three things now. There's three things. I've got the list started. I just have to look at it. So I was like, okay, this is really good. I'm seeing it. It's coming out of that locked blocks that it's been in. It's like, oh, these are all the three things that have been tied together that like stop me from taking action in that direction and made me fearful to do anything because I was afraid of getting a reaction that I was going to create an emotion in myself that I didn't want to feel because it's like, no,
Yes.
I can't take that.
Which is all a story.
Well, now it creates a story.
Oh yeah, it creates a story. But I'm saying that, but it's just the loop that's just wild to me because it's that emotion creates a story of, let's just do an example. Maybe this is an incorrect example, but like that emotion creates a story of, if I do this, I will get this reaction that will then make me feel that emotion that I don't want to feel. Now, is that the same emotion that like you're afraid of feeling, or is it like an emotion created the story of, I'll get this reaction and I'll feel this emotion? Does that make sense? Or is it maybe even a different emotion that is even hidden? Does that, I know I kind of feel like I did like a,
Well, what it starts on when it's a, and this is a great place for using that diagram, but when it starts off of what's really running you, so like say you're a young adult now, an adult or whatever, and you're like, you haven't do it. You've got an emotion buried in your mind, stored in there, and it's in there, and it's like, I won't go into the whole life cycle, but it's like you're afraid of feeling that, okay, because it's painful, like whatever it is, guilt, shame, sadness, loneliness, disappointment, whatever that is, you don't like feeling that, and but you already have it within you, right? It's in your mind, and your mind has emotional memory, and so you don't want to do anything in life that you associate with causing that somebody to be disappointed in you, to look at you with disappointment, so that you feel the disappointment that's already set to be activated within you. And so and then to do that, you have a whole story about why you shouldn't do something, because your story is generated by something that it's trying to protect, right?
yeah,
That's what it's trying to do. It's trying to protect yourself from a negative reaction from the outside, to get an emotional reaction that you already have inside you, but it's just wants to be up. So you have this story that starts, and so you figured out who you are and what you should do and what that person's about based on the story that's being generated from an emotion inside you, not from what's going on with people and they're doing, but you create a story that's not true. Seems true because it fulfills what the emotion inside you is and what you should be doing to protect yourself from it, but it's not true, right? It just seems true because that's the way you feel, and that's the way you color everything, and that's who that person represents out there for you, is they're the person who can do this to me, and then I will feel this X. And so you adjust yourself, but you don't realize that you're adjusting yourself and your actions and behaviors that will end up making the people out there react to you just the way you're trying to protect yourself from. That's how convoluted this all gets, right? And so, you end up saying, see, I was right. Damn it, they're that way. And I should have been smarter about that, not knowing that you created a story that totally fulfills their reactions. And the story drove your behaviors to do things based on, this is the right thing to do, not knowing it was the wrong thing to do, and it got you the place that you were afraid of getting to. So
well said.
so it comes back around to fulfill itself without you understanding like that's what you did, right? Because you thought you had a totally different plan and agenda. It's like, how did I end up here again with that person in that relationship or in this business dealing, or with this family member? Look at their, and it's like, look what they're doing. Again, the people are like this. They're like
Yeah.
that. not realizing, no, you were like this and your actions were like this and your behaviors were like this. And that's just how they would naturally respond for them. Right. But it makes total sense if you look at it from the outside, right? From that thing, like I said, it's like from some point of view, everything is self-evident. Because, you know, if you've ever had that thing, it's like you would watch somebody that you're not attached to interacting with do the same behavior over and over again and keep getting, you know, the same thing. And you look at it and say, don't you understand what you're doing? He says, that's crazy. He says, you know, if you keep doing this, you're going to get in trouble. You know, just a friend or somebody that it's like, you know, what are they doing? You know, and you look at it and say, well, in their mind, they're doing something for a completely different reason, expecting a completely different results. And it makes sense to them inside, but to you and everybody else outside, they go, that's not going to work. Right? It's that far off from the truth of reality of the outside. So it's like, and I knew that I was doing that, but I couldn't see what was behind it. I could not see the emotions that were driving. It's like, that's the thing that's behind the denial. So I couldn't resolve it yet. Well, now I'm starting to resolve it and not fall for it. And I see the story. And so it's starting to, you know, lose its energy and power and dissipate. And through that, lots of other little awarenesses about myself are coming through in different pieces that are attached to that one emotional story. I've seen other secondary ones that are also around it and going, oh, that was there too, and that was there too. And they're all operating together to end up with create the same chaos in my own emotional mind to feed itself. And so part of the teaching lesson here, as well as, you know, describing my own personal experiences, and when you're working on yourself and you do it, and I've seen this with other Toltecs who are been along the path like I have and seen themselves and where they're blocked still, and they have beliefs about themselves or something that happened to them in life that they feel is totally justified about why they're the way they are and what that person is doing is, you know, wrong, quote unquote wrong. And it's like, you know, if you're a Toltec and you're really working your personal awareness and you know, getting to the truth of the situation, and you know the truth of the situation is any reaction I have is me. It's all me. Right? Any emotional reaction I have is and pain and discomfort. It's me. Because it can only be me. I'm the only one who can create an emotion that I feel. And when you ever get trapped in the thing about, God, you know, those people, they're just unloving towards me, and that hurts me. You know what they're doing. That's just, I don't understand. I'm just trying to be, you know, that. And what you've done is you've completely justified who you think you are and what you're doing. You believe your story 100% about that particular story in that particular interaction, and you're 100% justified in where you are. When you find yourself 100% justified defending that you're feeling hurt, you've got something that's really hidden, and you that's where you know to take a look at it and says, wow, I 100% believe that what they're doing is hurting me. I'm really blind to what's going on inside me.
Yeah.
It's the perfect trigger to find something that's been a big block for you. You know, and so it really is like, it's like, oh, that hurt. God, look what they did. God, you know, it's like a person. It's like, oh, they did. Oh, what did I just do? Because I fell for that story 100%. I fell for that story. I was 100% right. I was 100% justified in feeling hurt and saying they did this.
Yeah. A lot of things came up throughout your talk with there. Like, well, one thing that comes up, and then something I wanted to mention about fear, if I can remember, talk about it, but just that, like, why is that person even involved in my story? Like what they think and whether they're right or wrong. Like, why does that even exist in my mind? Is it my sense, my need for approval? My need to be like, to look to the outside world and how it's, but see, it's like I'm looking at it, at the system from within the system. It's like I'm trying to look and have managed the world to be able to say that I'm okay, but looking to the world to say that I'm okay is the very thing that's keeping me stuck feeling not okay.
Exactly. Because the only reason you would look for the world to tell you you're okay is because you already feel that you are not okay.
Yeah.
Why would you go looking for something that you already have?
Yes.
You don't need it. It doesn't ever occur to you that you should go look for approval and you're okay. It's like, no, I'm okay. I'm enjoying them, but I don't need their approval to tell
Yeah.
me I'm okay. But we spend a huge amount of our time, and many of us spend a huge amount of time and effort doing that with our life.
Yeah. And then, it's just finding those emotions that are just keeping you looking to the outside to reflect back that you're okay.
Yeah, or with anything else. I'm okay is one of them, which is depend on worthiness, self-worth, self-hatred. What are you carrying around?
Okay.
Unworthiness.
You're talking emotions here.
Yeah,
Loneliness.
emotions, because it only goes back to emotions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And then you have a story about it, which links to the emotions, and then you have an action and behavior about that makes sense to do based on the story you created. That's completely wrong, right? Because you're not looking at what's going on. You think everything's outside oriented to make you feel a way, instead of you're making yourself feel the way you are, and then projecting it on the outside. So all the interactions you have with people and stuff like that is the mechanism that consciousness, the creator, gave us this to help us see what we're doing to ourselves so that we can clean it up and stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever it's the mechanism we have interacting with other people and situations, and seeing what our emotional reaction is within ourselves that we're causing ourselves to feel, that, and recognizing the ones that are really unpleasant and really make us unhappy and we really don't want to repeat and live in, to show us that we're doing that. And it's like, okay, now that I know that I'm doing that, I can now work on dissolving it within inside of me. Right? It's like, it's, as we talk about, it's the mirror to allow us to see ourselves and what we're doing to ourselves, to experience ourselves, what we're doing to ourselves emotionally, without being aware that it was in there and that that's what resided within our mind and our emotional body. So that's what we talk about, the mirror of the mirror with other people. It's to allow us, by interacting with them, using them as a mirror, to experience ourselves and how we are being and reacting in our own life on every interactive level to ourselves. And when we find out that we're getting very hurt, very frustrated, very sad, very disappointed, very whatever the unpleasant emotional things are, very guilty, very shameful. What am I doing to make myself shameful all the time? What am I doing? Why am I making myself guilty all the time? In everywhere, with everything, with everybody. Why am I seeking approval? What's wrong? Why do I need approval? What am I feeling already that makes me need approval? Because you're not seeking approval because you don't have any self-worth, right? You're seeking approval because you feel something. You don't have, self-worth is having something. Well, you don't have self-worth, you just don't have unworthiness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you don't, because you're already feeling unworthy, that's what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
If you don't feel unworthy and you clean out these things that you already have, these unpleasant emotions, your natural state is to feel great.
Yeah. Maybe that's what they talk about with emptiness. Like an emptiness of unworthiness, an emptiness of.
They use that phrase differently in some different spiritual traditions, being empty, and they talk about being a mind that doesn't, without thought. I think I'm trying to think about it, but you're right.
I didn't want to get you off track if you were talking.
Yeah.
Keep going with
No,
it. I'm
I
sorry.
don't think it about emptiness, because I think emptiness has to do with thoughts in the mind, more or less. But we could different discussion, because you won't ever be, because I'm talking about emotions, and you won't ever be emotionally empty.
Yeah. Okay.
You might be neutral, but you won't ever be emotionally empty. But if you clean up your emotional mind, about what is stored there, you won't have a repetitive thing to kind of keep experiencing that thing because it's already stored in your mind. And anything that's stored in your mind emotionally, just like old memories of events, you're going to feel all the time at some level until you clean it, like you to recognize it and go through the process of releasing and cleaning it out. Okay. Once it's cleaned out, your natural state of your emotional body to life and the things that is enjoyment and pleasure. Sometimes you might be neutral. That's it. You might have interactions in life with people that you have some unpleasant emotions in the moment, but you won't be experiencing them continuously out of just being because they're already stored within you. You know, it's the difference between, you know, driving through the rain and getting wet and always being a puddle of, or pool of dirty water. Oh, you get rained on sometimes. That's life. You go through things. You know, you get frustrated. You get cranky. You might get angry at something and just laugh at it because, you know, anger and being mad and angry is a natural emotional reaction. You do it, but you're not living in anger all the time, and that's the
It's not
difference.
like a dense, it's, yeah, I get that. It's not a dense, um, taking up, it's not a huge energy field, taking up a huge part of that energetic dream.
It's not, yeah.
Like it's there and it's a part, you know, you're an emotional body and situations will present into your virtual reality and you will feel that come up, you feel it fully and it's gone. And it's gone. It's not, and it's not like, and there, and in that way, you know, it's there, but it doesn't build, it doesn't get bigger, it doesn't get more dense. So that then now you're walking around with a resentment looking for a cause like all the time.
Yeah, that's a good way to put
You know, like that's what, you know,
it. Yeah.
if it was dense, if it was big, but if it's just, you know, it's there, it's a very small, and it's almost like it's, yeah, it's just a part of the evolution of the mind. I mean, anger, we're labeling it anger, but there's many emotions we have that are, you know, like you've talked about with the, you know, the first mind that was created in a predatory world. You know, there's survival emotions that have allowed us to survive.
Yeah.
Not us meaning just life.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and you can, and you're, at any time you can feel any of those emotions in the spectrum of, you know, love and pleasure and joy to, you know, anger and fear and all those things in the moment, and go through them and enjoy them. You know, that's the thing about it, you know, enjoy like the strength of the emotions flowing through the body and your experience of life. And then it's over. The situation that you had that emotional reaction to is over. Right? And you're done with that emotion. You don't need to go ruminating about it later and go, because that's something that's within you. But, you know, I can be driving out on the property here on the mower and get stuck in a ditch and get pissed. Damn it. Yeah. That's fine. You know, it's pretty funny in the end, but Nikki gets a kick out of it because it's happened a couple times. So things like that. Let's pause for 1 second. I got to take a little personal break. Be back in 2
Oh yeah, I do too, actually.
Let's do that for a moment.
Did you pause it?
No, I'm going to let it record. I'll cut it.
Oh, okay, cool.
Oh,
Cool. Um, yeah, yeah, it runs deep, man. It runs deep.
yeah, I can't learn
Because
about
it's
it.
just like I just see it after this conversation. It's just like I'm just seeing where it's still operating in my life.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and just it becomes more. What's good about it is, you see it and you say like, oh, you just kept at it because you notice, hey, my life's getting better. It's like I'm still doing a lot of this stuff, and I can see, and it would be good for me to spend a little more time, like what you've been doing, seeing what's driving it. And it can be easy to think that, oh, like maybe that it's not gone, but it's easy for maybe to not pay attention to it because it's you're not perpetuating it as much,
Mm.
with the outside. So it's not bouncing all over the place and getting into these anxious situations and just making it, just amplifying it, so but it's still operating. It's just like become a little more just like it can hide out a little sometimes
A little.
when you're not bringing it, bouncing it off of.
Yeah. So just its main, one of its main tactics is to hide out completely. So yeah, it's hiding out. Yeah.
Yeah.
It does not want to be discovered as a conscious emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting how it can, you're saying with your friends that have done Toltec work, you probably have seen that and you've seen it in yourself where it's still operating, but it's hiding out. It's dormant,
Yeah, it's hiding.
or
Not,
it's
it's
still
not
even
even, no,
operating.
it's not even dormant. It's
Yeah.
operating. It's
Yeah,
operating
it's operating.
100%, and it's hidden. And
Yeah.
because I'm not them, and I know them well. And it's like, we have frank conversations because we've been doing the same work. That's what you talk about. Uh, what you're discovering about yourself and what's happening is that you can see, them well enough that you can see that they're doing it, and that they're not recognizing that they're so locked into, they're justified in being right about what's happening, that they don't see what they're doing to themselves.
Mhm.
They're literally blocked from doing that, and that's just a mechanism of the survival of that emotional belief back in the mind. That's what it's created to do, is to keep you unaware of it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we've got that name, the denial system, and all that, and being emotionally blocked, and it all plays into it. So yeah, it's fascinating, because I've seen it in me ever since I started the work, and I really first started pulling up buried emotions. I was like, holy cow, I had no idea. And then I started understanding it. And then once like I said, I started understanding myself and what was happening, what I was doing to myself without being aware of it. And I went, wow. And then you recognize, like Miguel has taught us, it's like, wow, everybody's doing this. And they're all completely unaware of it. Because I was completely unaware of it.
Yeah.
I had no idea how unaware of it I was. I mean, I was doing something one time. I was having a conversation with my girlfriend at the time. We were talking, and she was asking me about something, and I lied to her. And she said, "No, you're lying." She goes, I go, "No, I'm not. I'm telling you the truth." And the thing was, I was lying.
Mhm. Mhm.
And she goes, so she asked the guy, I said, no, I said, that's not the way it is. It's this way. She goes, no, you're lying. I can feel it, you know? And I was going, no, I'm not lying. And then we went around that 3 or 4 times of that exact thing. And the 4th time I said it, I'm not lying, is the words were coming out of my mouth. I consciously was able to finally acknowledge, is like, I am straight up lying about this. I am straight up lying. And I was stunned that I was doing it and not knowing I was doing it, even though I knew it was a lie. It was the weirdest, crazy thing. And I finally looked at her and I went, you're right, I'm lying. And I go, how the hell was I able to do that?
Mhm.
To know it's a lie, to not acknowledge it to myself. At the same time, I was so well protected. I had such a strong reason in my own mind for doing it, to protect myself from saying the truth that I thought I was going to get hurt and judged for, that I was lying and not acknowledging to myself consciously that I was doing it, even though I knew I was doing it,
Mhm.
because I was making up the lie.
Mhm.
I mean, that's how our mind can kind of like hide things from itself so strongly. And it's like, oh, wow, that's a denial system. Wow.
So you were until you had that, when you were saying it had come up, did you know you were lying, or you, but like you did know like you were lying, or it just hit you harder? Like, how it's hard, I guess it's hard to like
Well,
really
I'm
put into
trying to,
words.
it's been a lot of years, and I'm trying to explain exactly what you're asking, because I was thinking about that to myself. Is like, almost you can only say a part of me knew I was lying,
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
but as I was telling her the lie, I was buying into the fact that I wasn't lying to her, but I
Oh,
knew
okay.
it was a lie,
Yeah, yeah.
right? But I was really buying into the fact that I wasn't lying to her.
The denial, that okay, there's the denial system
And I
of like,
and you know what? It was clear. I know it was clear at that time, because it was, what it really was a split. There was a split in the 2 levels of what I was consciously acknowledging. It was like a complete split. Over here was the truth I was lying, and over here was the truth I wasn't lying. And
okay.
I was buying this one, even though I knew this was real.
Mhm, mhm.
I don't know how else to explain it. I'd have to go back and relive the moment and kind of go,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But it's like, and that was like the denial system that I was going. It's like, wow, I wasn't even aware that I was doing that until it was like so shoved down my face. Because she could tell, she just emotionally could tell I wasn't telling the truth.
Yeah. Well, almost it feels like acceptance came in too, of like, or no, of just because of the, maybe the denial of like the you know because it was just so, going back to this thing about like being afraid to get that reaction, to feel this thing,
Exactly.
by like almost saying, just catching yourself in the middle of it and being like, and just feeling it fully, that you're lying, and opening up to that is almost like the acceptance of feeling that emotion that I was lying about or lying to avoid. I don't know if that makes sense.
And
Kind of,
I don't think,
it's hard to,
the acceptance thing is part of the process to uncover your emotions. But in that moment, it really wasn't that. It was just like,
okay.
because the lie was so obvious to me finally, that by the time we went through this repetitive thing with it, I finally had to acknowledge to myself that I was telling her a lie.
Mhm,
I was
mhm.
defending telling her a lie. I finally had to acknowledge it to myself. I guess what happened was the truth got so stark in my own mind that I had to overcome my denial and
Oh,
my habitual habit about lying about things,
okay.
because I was afraid of getting judged. But it was so
Mhm.
stark in that interaction, and it wasn't like a 1 or 2 thing. It was like she wasn't going to let it go because she knew. and I was in the car with her, and we were out of town, so it wasn't like I was going to escape.
Mhm.
And but it hit me, and I was, I was working on myself in this work, and it's like it was in the first year or two, and it came up, and it just became clear and stark in my mind, and it overcame my fear of being caught doing something that I actually admitted it and go, that's crazy.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
know, just a moment of pure awareness of it that went beyond, the control of the story,
Uh-huh.
because yeah, awareness, that piece that's the watcher and the observer that we talk about cultivating and using, will, when it watches the truth of something, it'll go, oh wow, look what I'm doing. Because it takes the awareness out of the automatic reaction that is just happening without you consciously directing it, because that's the way you've been trained to be. And you just kind of do that, to this neutral part that watches in the moment and goes, oh wow, this is the truth of what's happening, not the truth of this. It's not the story I'm telling myself about what's happening, it's the truth of what's happening. Because the truth is a lie, or the story is a lie, right? It's made up and it's inaccurate. But the observer can see the truth and go and recognize the lie. And then you kind of like, you're in that weird place of, wow, I was lying the whole time and I didn't even know it. I was lying to
Mhm.
myself about what was happening and why I was doing things in my story. My emotions
Okay.
were real, but I was lying to myself. So
I can see that. Just in that example I was talking about with like what's still operating with me.
yes,
I see where I'm still um, lying to myself of what I'm doing,
yeah,
why I'm doing it,
yes,
and it will reveal itself at some point,
exactly, right.
and I'll know I was lying.
yeah, it seems like a strong word, because
Yeah, yeah,
lying is usually can do this tension, but the story is not true.
yeah,
Shorter
yeah.
way of
That, in
saying,
that sense, we're talking about it,
yeah,
right?
the story, this, so basically when you say the story is not true, oh, it's a lie.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But yeah, the story isn't true, and it's distorted, and you're believing it, so it's a lie.
yeah.
And that's the part, and that's that strange thing about having your consciousness in a virtual reality that can lie to itself and distort you.
That's where I just like. I still sometimes like think I can see it, and then it just like it's still kind of just
Oh, but
like
well,
what,
then,
where did that go? Wait, what?
even though you know that in a moment of clarity and discussion, and then you go back on to your life 5 minutes later, and you're doing
Yeah,
something. It's like you're back in the story of
yeah,
of life and how you should react to things, and it's like you don't even. Yeah, it's seamless. You don't even notice that you boop, fill in again.
yep, yeah.
It's like
Well, I mean, at that point, it'll keep on coming up until you've disconnected.
exactly, and that's the great thing about life and interactions and other people is it'll always keep reflecting the truth about what you really are. And whenever you have that dissonance, you have conflict, and then now you can look at it and find out where the conflict is.
Yeah,
The emotional
yeah.
conflict within yourself.
Non-attachment. So I'm like attached. I'm just still attached to
Yeah.
what
Well,
am I attached to?
dude, I'll just keep making a list of whatever you're having a judgment of an emotional reaction to about people that are close in your life, and you'll have a good list of the strongest things.
Yeah,
You know, you can look at your work situation and with your father and all the stuff that comes up around that, and you got a little pool of stuff there. Look at, you know obviously, the stuff about with your relationships with women, which is
yeah,
always a big one, whether you're male or female, about that thing. That's one of our biggest things that really involves a lot of really juicy emotional stuff. So all that
mhm,
stuff, things about money, things about status, if that means anything to you, things about world situations, if you're attached to political ideals or groups and how things should be, and social agendas and, you know, wherever you end up getting focused and feel justified and righteous about and go, huh, what's tied up with this for me personally? Not that your agenda isn't right, but what's your reaction to it? You know, what kind of cruddy juice are you trying to extract from that in the way you're interacting with that?
Yeah. Well, that's just seeing how Miguel interacts, it truly is like a play for him. And he's playing, he's not looking to the outside to tell him that he's okay, and I'm sure there's plenty of examples to show just in how, just seeing him, how that's like true, and it's like to be that free, because, at times I can, it can seem like it's all playground and I'm just enjoying, I'm not looking to the outside, but things come up and I emotionally react, and it's like, wonder why that happened. Oh, well, it's pretty obvious actually. Now that you look at it, why
Yeah.
why it happened,
Yeah. And a lot of them for us personally are, like you said, about getting acceptance and approval from people and things on the outside to make us feel like we're good. We're a good human being, we're a good person, we're worthy of love, we're doing it right. That's a big one to look at, that we really fall into. And if you're a big people pleaser, if you're a big trying to do things for everybody and all that kind of stuff to your own detriment. I mean, it's great to do things for people, it's kind and it's giving, stuff like that, but why are you doing it? Are you doing it out of love and kindness, of just I love giving, and it's like, because it feels good, that's great, but are you owned by needing people's approval?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think people then will beat themselves up and they take it like, well, I'm conditionally loving, or I'm being selfish, but it's like, that's kind of the world that we were born into. That's the dream of the planet. So it's like, that's the system. That's,
Right.
And there's nothing to, there's varying degrees of it, and we're all working on ourselves. But it's like, I think some people early on, if they hear that, then oh, there's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with me, and then I'm gonna just use that now to inflict suffering on myself.
Yep.
And it's not about that. It's about just being able to see it.
Exactly, 100%.
And it's not personal to something that's wrong with me.
No, there's nothing wrong with anybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
At any level of awareness.
Yeah.
Now, that's a big picture view
Yes.
to accept, but it's true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you're doing the presentation to a group and people ask questions. Well, what about somebody who does this horrible thing, and this horrible thing, this horrible thing? It's a horrible thing, but from a big picture view, it's on the spectrum of human behavior.
Mm-hmm. And how the operating system can
is working with inside that particular human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Some of those things really, really unpleasant, stuff like that? Yes. From a big picture view, is there anything wrong with them? Not really. Not truthful.
Mm-hmm. With their level of awareness and their state of consciousness.
Right, is what it is, whatever's driving them to be, just say, violent or brutal or anything like that, you're talking about those kinds of things. Like, what would be driving them to do that?
Yeah.
What are they, and what types of emotions are they controlling them that they need to keep sustaining that and doing these things and doing that? It's like, it's been with humanity for ever since we developed it, to this point. It's there's humans in consciousness like that.
Mhm.
Hopefully people who recognize that don't have to interact with that, but it exists.
Mhm.
And if you're going to get outraged about it and do it, it's like, you don't have to approve or like it, but be conscious of what you're doing to yourself emotionally when you recognize that.
Yes.
That's the dividing line.
Is that like seeing eyes with love?
Yeah.
Being a seer of, yeah, I guess, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the whole getting back to this whole path of what we started out, what changes the path of humanity as each individual is like you need, as you gain more awareness, you get a bigger perspective of that, and that becomes a truth, and it's like that helps you clean up your own mind of the emotions that are programmed in there to limit your growth, right? And so, the bigger you can expand your inclusiveness of what you think is correct for humanity and human behavior, of all the things that they obviously do. We have the news now. We can see all of the things humans do, from the most brutal and dark to the most kind and giving and loving, is like, that's the spectrum of humans.
Mhm.
And it's like, if you can go, okay, just see the truth of that, and just like, it's like, there's parts of it I just don't want anything, I don't approve of and don't do with it, but I don't make myself hate or fear or judge and feel righteous and stuff like that about one spectrum of that I disapprove of. It's like, I recognize that and go, that's one path for some consciousness to go down, to hopefully evolve out of,
With its consequences.
and with its consequences, right? All of its emotional consequences, life consequences, physical consequences,
Yes.
and things that happen to it with its consequence. If you end up in prison because of those behaviors or whatever you did, that's consequences. And then you're
Yeah.
living in that environment, all the consequences of that.
Yeah.
And so it's just consequences, because behaviors and actions have consequences.
On all those different levels, like you were saying.
Yeah, on all those
In the
different
physical.
whatever they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a tough argument for people to deal with, because when you're talking about these concepts about not judging these behaviors, it's like, well, what about this? It just seems so obvious you should do it. It's like, well, okay, it's not, you're seeing what they're doing. Again, what are you doing with it?
Yes.
To yourself, and recognize that, and then just like, okay. But it's like, if they can find but this is what else they do. If they can find the one or two examples that this doesn't apply to, they can like maybe discount the whole teaching about judgment,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Or a lot of times they get, and I've heard this from a fellow Toltecs, is like, yeah, I mean, I believe that was true, and I understood what Miguel was saying, but there's these couple of things, it's just like, that just can't be okay. And then it's like, it took them a long time for them to experience, like, oh, I get it now. It really is my reactions, my problem, my judgment of them that makes me think that's not okay. And then they recognize that what they're doing is, those people don't feel that way about what they're doing. They don't look at it that way. And it's like, look, you can go back and look at one. It's like, do you think Hitler thought he was wrong?
Mm-hmm.
He's doing drastic, horrible things, right? But do you think he thought he was wrong? No, from his point of view and his dream, he thought what he was doing was the right thing to do. And he was telling him to make himself feel good about the right thing to do. He just had a totally different point of view of what was right and wrong and what was justified and why he was doing it. In his own
And
mind.
all the while, what's that?
In his own mind.
Yeah. And all the while, there was an emotion driving all that he was afraid to,
we don't know.
Who knows?
We don't know, but there was something driving him with that hate for certain groups, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the need for his people, the German people, to be like on the top. I mean, all of those things were driven by something inside of him,
Mm-hmm.
And so, and do you think he was wrong? Yeah, I don't know. He comes up as an easy example for me to say, because I kind of don't think he ever really on the line side said, I really shouldn't be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
He was pushing a really strong idealistic agenda, not just trying to be a top politician, which is kind of like a selfish motivation. It's like, I'm going to say the right things to get people to vote for me, and I'm going to be in that position. I don't believe him so much, but I'm going to use him. Versus he was pushing a personal agenda that he believed in on top of everything else.
Well, and then you push that agenda, and then it's reflected back to you.
Everything's reflected back to you.
Yeah.
Yep. And he found other people who identified with it and said, yeah, great, I like this.
Yeah.
Get on board with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's how you get a bigger story going. It's people buying.
Yeah, then that's how a story builds more and more life to it.
Exactly.
And it all started with an emotion.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, it's like, why do we even still tell these stories? Like just these stories of these examples of, well, just everything, but just like the story of I know we're talking about like Hitler all of a sudden, but just like of times of great pain that people have caused each other, like we use those stories, those conflicts, to just reinforce this idea of there's things, we think things are happening out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they're very good at getting us outside. I guess what I was trying to say is these stories can, and it's different for every person, but they can carry a lot of pull, a gravity to suck our attention out from seeing that, like, wow, this is all me, to like, oh no, it was out there.
Yeah.
And everyone else says like, yeah, it was out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, well, people don't realize, like, actually it's all in here. It goes, I mean, that's what we've been like kind of drilling today, is this idea of it. Like, it's like you've always said, it's 180.
Yeah, it's 180 from the way you think it is. It's not all out there, it's all in here, 180 degrees there.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff.
I just love talking about it. It never gets old for me. Just talking, like, and then you don't want to get caught up in just having these little signposts, that you kind of hold on to, and you use them until you don't need them anymore, of course, some of these tools, but it's good to talk about some of these signposts, because I think that's the best teaching, is the type of teaching that can create a deep sense of, I don't know how to describe it. Like when I went into Eckhart Tolle's talk, or, a lot of the way, like you probably could say, we could probably wrap it up soon because I gotta
Yeah.
meet up with my bro for mountain bike riding. But like, a lot of, like Miguel said, a lot of his communication is not in the words, but
Yeah.
in presence.
Yeah.
Like I felt something when I went, and I could feel it with Eckhart Tolle. Like it was a significant experience. You're, I know we're kind of going off into a whole new thing, but a lot of the talks that we've had just put you into a new dream.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Even on the internet, it was Zoom. Because like I know, when we're in person, it's even more so. But it's like I always left your house like feeling great.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think I ever left like I felt just like this sense of like just whatever I came in with. Sometimes I would come in like feeling just like carrying this huge weight, and I would leave, and it's just like the weight was gone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but then it comes back. And it's like I think the more and more people can expose themselves to those moments of just like feeling that lightness, and getting a taste of that, the more you're like, I want more of that. Like, how do I get more of that?
Right. Yep. Totally.
Hmm.
That's what it's all about. That's what kept me going. Back to
I
mechanics.
know.
I want more of this.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the work and what I was learning, and that it took a while for it to seep in. For I was able to really implement it, but the interaction with the group and Miguel was just like, I like that. I like the stimulation I got out of that. Both what was discussed somewhat, although I didn't understand most of it to begin with, and then but basically, I felt great afterwards. Felt like something, good. So yeah, why wouldn't I go back?
Yeah.
Mm.
And then the great thing is now, and then over time with practice, you can maybe you can like bring in some of that to for somebody else. It's like sharing the love. I know it's like a cliche thing, but you end up, if you stay in that as best as you can, and with practice, you attract, what you attract, what will come into your dream will be beautiful. Like, I mean, maybe some things like will happen, and but then that's just something for you to work on within your dream. And it dissolves away, but then there's things. It's amazing how you can attract
Mhm.
really totally different things. I'm starting to notice that. I know I'm kind of rambling, but I'm just starting to notice that in my life. I am starting to attract um, different people into my life and different experiences into my life. It's almost like they're like, because I've changed, well, it goes back to that, because I've changed, you know, the outside is changing.
Yep. And
And it's like
people
magic.
people are coming in now who are different because they're reflecting who you are now
Yes.
and what you need to, and they're going to help you to see what you are now, to reflect a different aspect of yourself that the people who are exiting out your life don't need to reflect for you anymore.
Yep.
It's a huge gift. People showing up in your life and then interacting with you, and then they're basically there without even them consciously aware of it, for you guys to reflect for each other and
Yeah.
to help each other see yourself, so that you can uh, evolve your emotional mind, which is
Hmm.
your consciousness.
Yeah.
Huge gift. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, it really is. When you can see it and experience in that way, and I had a very, very strong experience of what that was and what was happening, and looking at the people around me and going, oh my God, that's exactly why they're here for me. And I was
Mhm.
extremely grateful that they were there to do that for me.
Mhm.
Just that my gratitude was just immense when I saw what they were really doing. It's like, and so genuine. It was like, wow.
It's like it's beautiful to just operate from that place more and more, because it's such a more loving, gentler, caring environment. And just
Right. Thanks
it's
for
just it's
thanks for bringing that little aspect up, because I hadn't really thought about that moment when I realized that and had that really big gratitude thing before. It's like, yeah, I forgot. I kind of hadn't thought about it in a long time.
Mhm. You're welcome.
Yeah.
I think this is I'm gonna get the thing in the back. I mean,
Yeah.
there's sometimes like, how is it with I mean, I know you've started like sometimes I'll like ramble and get off track, and like, are you gonna like are you gonna try to cut that up, or we don't need to talk about that,
Yeah,
but
I'm gonna. Yeah, no,
like
no, I'm gonna work in and edit, especially on some of the older ones that were where we had a lot more meandering conversations. I'm gonna pull out things, and anything that gets kind of off track, I'll do it. And I'll
yeah,
do so. And I'll do just some shorter clips as individual YouTubes,
yeah.
and maybe not
I'm
leave
gonna
that thing.
yeah, I'll try not to make it too difficult on you, the editing. With like, but what I'm saying like is like sometimes I it's all part of like the process.
Yeah,
I think that we all do it differently. And I'm not, it's not a big deal. It's just like what's great about it, all this is you can just like you let it flow.
yeah.
You let it flow and you just
That's
go and
that's what this series of conversations with Alex is about. It's just like, conversation and questions, and we are who we are, and with discuss.
yeah,
Sometimes it'll be really congruent, information in doing. Other times it'll be like, whatever it is. And it's like, yeah, probably clip that.
yeah.
But it's fine, because this format works great for us. For the way we do things and communicate, this works great.
Oh, it's perfect. It's light. There's yeah, I think one thing we've always been good at is we've never put like we were talking about earlier, but we've just never put like pressure on, and there's no pressure
In the
on any of it.
on the
And
conversation. Yeah, right.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think that is, and I'm grateful for you, I think, for allowing me. I think you've been very helpful in that dynamic,
Hmm.
very much so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, big time.
Well, this is going to be a really good video to put up,
Yes.
and I'll work on this one first to edit
Mhm.
and get it up, and then it'd be interesting if you pass it on to your buddy, because he can listen to this, and because we have some great concepts we're talking about. See
Yeah,
what stirs
I
up.
will. I'll text them. I'll tell you, hey, I got, I'll tell him and send it over to him, because I think this would be really helpful. It'd be interesting to hear what he has to say
Yeah,
about it.
because I think this is good. One of the things I like to do about our conversations is get into concepts that stir up questions about, what do you mean by that?
Yes.
Because it took me a while when I started with you. When you started to apprentice with me, was I worked with you on the basic concepts that a lot of them are included when we talked today, but I kind of broke them down and kind of do them, and you had the recordings to kind of work through figuring out what I was saying over the following months. But conversations like this are good for somebody else who listens and just goes, I want to learn more about that, but I don't understand what they're talking about. So it's a good way for uh, people's minds to get engaged with trying to figure things out.
Yeah, kind of like planting a seed.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like I've thought about that too with our talks, because we'll talk about things on a very like, maybe not in the mechanical granular level like you took me through. And yeah, that can make things people were like, well, I don't really, to us, it sounds like, yeah, there's this, and this, and it all fits like this,
Right.
but to them, they don't have that. So
No.
it's good, but that takes time. And then there's always like, there's even that will all kind of evolves out
Yeah.
anyways. And
And
then
when people
that's
get
where I
in,
think,
when people get interested, those are teaching classes.
yes,
So
that's what I was gonna say. There's a format for that.
I said, so, okay, we'll do a class on that if, it's somewhere down the road, and it's like, do it. Cause that's what I like to do, because then I can
Perfect.
get into the flow of doing it naturally, of teaching a class to people who are doing it. Cause it feels like, to do that with you now, it just kind of feels not natural and redundant, because it's like we've covered that, even though we've
Yeah.
up in conversations really well. It's much more natural for me to do with someone who's learning it for the first time.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of how these things work with YouTube. It seems like what people will do is the YouTube, because it's free, it's accessible. Um,
You're right.
you get a taste of like, okay, what's it all about? Hey, I'm interested in this. Like, oh, I can find out more about it right here, and I think that's really a very streamlined, very
Right.
efficient way to, the YouTube videos almost act as like a filter to find people that are interested. Because yeah, you want to talk to people that resonate with it, that want to go there, and because it's like, otherwise you'd just be talking to a brick wall.
Yep. And and it gives them a really easy entry into, like, do I like this guy, and what's he saying? Do I like what he's saying? I'm interested in going for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I use YouTube for
Yep. That's how I do too.
my hobby,
Yeah.
for figuring things out. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, dude. Well,
Yeah.
I love you.
Love you too. Really good to talk to you. Appreciate the
Nice
conversation.
talking to you too.
Really
What's
great
that?
conversation.
Yeah.
Appreciate the conversation. It was a really good conversation today.